When it finally started, why did you pull away?
This is not about loss. It's about the moment, when closeness stops feeling safe. Not because it failed, but because it stayed.
Closeness did not arrive suddenly. It built itself gradually without announcement. Luna recorded how the distance shortened first, not physically, behaviorally. Messages arrived more easily. Silences felt less heavy. The body adjusted to another presence without effort. Nothing dramatic happened. From the outside, this looked like progress. From the inside, it felt manageable. Luna observed that people rarely question closeness when it forms this way. There is no clear threshold to cross, no single decision to acknowledge. The bond assembles itself through repetition, through availability, through small confirmations that require no explanation. At this stage, closeness feels light, uncomplicated, almost natural, but Luna noted that this lightness does not last. As the bond stabilizes, its weight begins to register, not emotionally, structurally. Time becomes shared, attention becomes expected. Presence begins to imply continuity. The system inside the individual starts to recalculate. What was once optional begins to feel scheduled. What was once spontaneous begins to feel required. Luna recorded the moment when closeness stopped being neutral. There was no conflict, no visible mistake, only a shift in perception. The body reacts before language does. Responses slow slightly. Initiation decreases. Space is introduced without explanation. This is not rejection. Luna documented that the retreat is subtle enough to be justified as normal behavior. People remain polite, available, appropriate. From the outside, nothing appears to change, but internally, distance is being restored. Luna observed that this restoration feels reasonable, necessary, protective. Closeness begins to resemble obligation, not because of the other person, but because of what continuity demands. The system does not resist connection, it resists permanence. Luna recorded individuals who did not want the bond to end. They simply did not want it to expand further, so they adjusted. They answered later. They initiated less. They preserved space without naming it. The bond remained intact, but it stopped moving. Luna noted that this pause feels different from hesitation. It carries less tension, more relief, stability returns. The system recognizes this state as optimal. Connection exists, but demand is reduced. Nothing collapses. There is no moment to mark as failure. Luna recorded how people rationalize this internally without words. They sense the need for balance, for autonomy, for containment. They do not experience guilt. They experience alignment. Closeness is not denied. It is managed. The retreat is not dramatic enough to be noticed by others, but it is precise. Every adjustment serves to keep the bond from deepening further. Luna documented that this pattern repeats across contexts, different people, different circumstances. The structure remains consistent. Luna recorded that retreat does not announce itself. It does not arrive as a decision. It appears as a series of small adjustments that feel reasonable in isolation. Nothing changes all at once. The body begins to create distance before the mind names it. Posture becomes more contained, movement less reactive, presence more selective. Luna observed that this shift rarely feels negative. It feels efficient. Energy is conserved. Attention is redirected. The system recalibrates to reduce exposure. Closeness remains, but it is no longer allowed to expand freely. Time starts to reorganize itself around this new balance. Responses are delayed without intention. Availability narrows without explanation. There is no urgency to correct this. Luna documented how individuals interpret this as maturity, as self-regulation, as a necessary boundary. Nothing in the environment contradicts this interpretation. The bond continues to exist in a stable form. There are no confrontations, no demands, no pressure to clarify. From the outside, the relationship appears intact, but internally the system is quietly withdrawing capacity. Luna recorded that this withdrawal does not feel like loss, it feels like relief. The reduction of intensity brings comfort, predictability increases, surprise diminishes. Closeness becomes easier to manage once it is limited. The system recognizes this state as sustainable. Luna observed that once retreat begins, it reinforces itself. Each moment of distance confirms the next. The absence of conflict validates the adjustment. Nothing breaks, so nothing needs repair. Over time, the body adapts fully to the reduced engagement. What once felt natural begins to feel excessive. Initiation starts to require effort. The idea of returning to earlier closeness introduces friction, not emotional friction, structural friction. Luna recorded that people rarely identify this as a problem. There is no obvious damage, no clear decline. Life continues smoothly. The bond remains functional but static. Luna observed that this state is difficult to question. Without pain, there is no reason to intervene. Without conflict, there is no signal to respond. The system favors continuity over expansion. Individuals do not feel rejected. They feel balanced. They do not feel distant. They feel contained. Luna documented that this containment gradually reshapes expectation. Lower intensity becomes the norm. Minimal contact feels sufficient. The earlier version of closeness becomes abstract, less accessible, less relevant. Memory does not preserve it clearly. There is no sharp contrast to return to. The retreat becomes invisible even to the person enacting it. Luna recorded that this is how withdrawal persists without awareness. No conscious choice is required. The system simply follows the path of least disruption. Closeness is not removed. It is compressed. The bond survives, but its depth remains capped. Luna observed that this configuration can last indefinitely. Nothing forces change. Nothing demands resolution. The structure holds. People remain connected enough to avoid absence, but distant enough to avoid exposure. The balance feels intentional, even when it was never chosen. Luna did not label this as avoidance. It recorded it as adaptation, a response to weight, to continuity, to what closeness quietly requires over time. The retreat does not end the bond, it defines its limit. Luna did not record a moment of rupture. There was no argument that demanded distance, no decision that required explanation, no clear point where the bond was declared incomplete. Time continued to move forward without resistance. The reduced closeness became routine, not enforced, not defended, simply accepted. Luna observed that once a bond stabilizes at a limited depth, it stops asking questions. There is no pressure to clarify intention. No need to renegotiate presence. Everything functions. People speak when necessary. They respond when expected. They remain available within defined limits. Nothing signals absence. And yet something no longer advances. Luna recorded how this static state does not register as dissatisfaction. There is no clear discomfort, no longing intense enough to disrupt behavior. The body has adapted. Attention remains contained. Energy is distributed elsewhere. The system no longer allocates excess capacity to the bond. This does not feel like loss. It feels like order. Luna noted that individuals rarely reflect on this configuration. There is nothing urgent to evaluate, no visible error to correct. The bond exists in a neutral state. It neither deepens nor collapses. The absence of escalation becomes normal. Luna recorded how memory begins to flatten earlier intensity. What once felt present becomes difficult to recall with precision. Details blur. Without a sharp contrast, there is no reference point for comparison. The current state feels sufficient. Luna observed that this sufficiency is deceptive, not because it hides damage, but because it removes momentum. Nothing pushes forward. The system does not reopen the question of closeness. It does not request re-engagement. It allows the configuration to persist indefinitely. Luna recorded that people rarely return to the moment where retreat first occurred. There is no clear marker to revisit, no action to reconsider. The adjustment happened gradually without ceremony. Over time, the bond becomes part of the background, present but not central, stable but inactive. Luna noted that this inactivity is not experienced as emptiness. It is experienced as balance. Expectations remain low, demands remain minimal, exposure remains controlled. The system recognizes this as sustainable. Luna did not interpret this as failure. It recorded it as a state that does not seek resolution. Nothing collapses, nothing repairs itself. The bond remains exactly as it has been shaped,